Let's talk to KT McFarland, former U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor and the author of Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, great to have you back with us.
Oh, Vince, it's always good to be with you. Thank you.
What do you make of this pick, and what does it mean for the country?
It's terrific. First of all, I mean, Mike Walz is a highly decorated combat veteran. He's really smart. He's been a policy advisor at the Pentagon and at the White House in previous administrations. He is a MAGA Republican. He came in with Trump. He likes Trump. They get along really well. He's articulate. So I think he's just a brilliant choice. Mm-hmm. The only thing is, this is the hardest job in Washington because you're at the president's side morning, noon, and night. You're up before the president gets up and you brief him, and you go to bed after the president goes to bed and he's talked to you. And the problem is Donald Trump sleeps 4 hours a night. So it's a really hard job to have, and Mike Walz will be terrific. Plus, he has an awesome, terrific wife who's even smarter than he is.
Well, it's a tough job, too, because this is an intelligence community that hasn't exactly been very friendly to President Trump. And here you have a national security advisor coming in who's going to grab the reins. And what kind of problems might he run into in this role?
Well, certainly in the first Trump administration, you're absolutely right. It was the national security community and the entire government, really. The federal bureaucracy, the lifers, the sort of faceless, nameless bureaucrats that you don't hire, you can't fire, who are there forever and look at presidents as just sort of, oh, presidents come, presidents go, we're here forever, we're in charge. And I just keep thinking back to the statement that Colonel Vindman made during the impeachment hearings. So Vindman used to work on the NSC. I tried to get him fired, couldn't fire him. But he said in the impeachment hearings that one of the problems that why Donald Trump should be impeached is because Donald Trump his policies were against the agreed upon interagency policy for Ukraine. That said it all.
In other words, the sitting president of the United States has no role in this. He should butt out. We have an interagency process, don't you see?
Well, and you know what? I mean, not only is it undemocratic, right? The people of the United States elect the president of the United States to make those decisions, but they've also gotten everything wrong. I mean, they were wrong about the forever wars. They were wrong about Israel and the Middle East. They were wrong about Ukraine. They were wrong about energy in Europe. They were wrong about China. They were wrong about, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. And so not only are these people undemocratic and have seized power away from the American people, but they're actually not very good at it.
Yep. The other thing, having talked to Congressman Walz a lot through the years, because we've had him on the show so many times, and we talked quite a bit about Ukraine and the role that the United States has been playing there. And one of the things that Congressman Walz would routinely say, especially as time went on, is we need an accounting of how Ukraine is spending all of this. And this is basically stretched on into infinity. And he became very I would say, very critical of what was happening in Ukraine and the effect it was having on Americans and all of the loss of Ukrainian lives. So he's a guy on that issue who seems to be in the same place that President Trump and J.D. Vance are
in. Which is why he was selected for that job. It's not just we need an accounting of where all the money goes. Now, remember, before the Ukraine war, Ukraine was considered one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Is it still? We don't know. The second point is, but what's the plan? What's the plan? I mean, other than we know Russia's bad, we know Russia is the aggressor, we know Russia shouldn't be rewarded.
Right.
But then you have to then say, well, okay, so how do you defeat Russia? And there was never a plan. It was just spend more money, give us some more stuff, but never a plan to win, just a plan to kind of keep it going. And that's the definition of a forever war. I mean, I don't think it's an accident that we pull out of Afghanistan, we leave all the trillions of dollars of equipment behind, and then within a few months, there's a new forever war going on in Ukraine.
And that war has resulted in a lot of death. Some estimates say it's above 1 million people who've been killed between Russia and Ukraine with no obvious end in sight. I know President Trump really wants to bring it to a conclusion.
The great thing about President Trump is that he doesn't like wars. He doesn't want to have to fight wars. He doesn't want to have to give in. But on the other hand, he's like Reagan. You have a strong defense, so you don't have to use it. And when President Trump talks about Ukraine, he says, wouldn't it be better if they just settled and stopped all the killing? I mean, I look at it, and this is me talking, not President Trump, not Mike Walz. But if Ukraine is slowly, grindingly losing a war of attrition, which it is, even the Pentagon says that they're losing this war of attrition slowly, how do you, if you can't win the war in Ukraine, how do you win the peace? Maybe you win the peace by once the fighting stops, what will happen? Well, if you play the long game, countries and companies will send $1 trillion in to rebuild Ukraine. Within a few years' time, Ukraine will be fully integrated into the Western economy. Remember, it's got an educated population, it's got enormous natural resources, mineral resources, agricultural resources. So Ukraine, a few years after the fighting stops, is a vibrant country. Where's Russia 5 years after the fighting stops? Well, nobody's going to rush in to rebuild Russia. Their economy won't be very good because Donald Trump will have lowered the price of energy through American energy dominance.
Yeah.
And so Russia's going to be 5 years after the fighting stops. Russia's almost a third world country, whereas Ukraine will be it'll be a vital part of Europe.
And you already have Europe talking about buying more natural gas from the United States instead of Russia, which is crazy to me that we're even at that point in the conversation, instead of Russia. So Europe has been funding Russia's war while feeling antagonized by Putin at the same time. So it's just crazy. Let me move on to Iran, because we've seen all these reports of the attempts by the Iranians to assassinate President Trump, over and over and over again. And now I'm seeing reports that from the New York Times that the Iranians, having failed to assassinate him, they couldn't whack him, so now they want to work with him. Now they're plotting. Okay, how do we just have to work with this guy as he comes in? What's going on with the Iranians?
If you're the mullahs, and if you kind of look at the layout, they're very practical people. Remember, Iran, the Persians invented chess. They're very good at playing chess. And if you look around, you think, okay, Hezbollah has been diminished. It's been demolished, decapitated. Hamas is finished. And the way that Israel killed and the senior leadership of Hezbollah and Hamas was mostly by tracking them on their cell phones. So if you're the senior mullahs of Iran and you've just seen a senior Hezbollah official be killed just a few blocks down the road from where you live, you got to be a little nervous. And now that President Trump is coming in, and President Trump has always been very pro-Israel, and he's always been anti-Iran. He slapped sanctions on Iran. President Trump has said then, and he continues to say, that the way you deal with Iran is you bankrupt them. Iran needs to sell oil at a high price or it doesn't have anything. So Biden comes in. He immediately makes sure that the price of oil goes way up because of Biden's energy policy, so Iran is rich because it sells oil. And then he dropped it, didn't enforce the sanctions, and then he gave Iran millions of dollars. So Iran is probably, some estimates are, over $100 billion richer thanks to Joe Biden than they would have been if Donald Trump had remained president.
Yes.
So if Iran is looking at this equation, they've got to think, yikes, we've got to worry about our own people right now, whether our own people are going to keep us in power if we have an economy that is sputtering.
And it's China that's been keeping Iran alive. 90% of their oil exports go to China. So you've got this.
China.
You've got this arrangement where China is keeping the Iranian terror threat funded in the Middle East. And so much of this goes right back to the answer that you pointed out to a moment ago about Russia. It's American energy. If we can get American energy stimulated to unseen levels, that's going to start to resolve a lot of this.
It's American energy is the answer to everything. It's the answer to an American economic growth and American economic revitalization. But it really has a big national security impact. We now realize we have enough oil and natural gas from shale that we can power the world for hundreds of years ourselves. We don't need Russia. We don't need Saudi. We don't need any of those countries. We can power the world cheaper, safer, cleaner than any other country can. And so what does that do? It puts the United States in an extraordinary position of leverage over China, leverage over Russia, leverage over Iran. So if you're Iran, and Iran continues to, every about 8 years, there's a popular uprising of the people of Iran against the mullahs and the government of Iran, they've got to start worrying about, if Donald Trump is going to drive the price of energy down, we're not going to be able to have the money for our terrorist groups, for our proxy wars, for our nuclear program. Yeah. We better find a way to settle with Donald Trump.
The way the media describe it, they say that world leaders are quaking in their boots that Donald Trump is coming back into office, that they're so upset about this. The global community is so upset about this. But one thing I've noticed is, first of all, it looks like every single world leader is making the pilgrimage or the phone call to President Trump right now. They all want to talk to him. He talked to Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin within the last week. Clearly, they want to have conversations with him. We're looking at the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, the new Mexican president. She's
Hmm.
already slowing down some of the waves of humanity who are trying to head north because she doesn't want tariffs slapped on her country. President Trump just threatened to do that recently. And then you've got the Western Europeans saying they may take some natural gas from the United States now and get away from Russia. It seems like the world community is very instantly adhering to a future that has Donald Trump as president.
Well, look, in the last couple of days, China has come out and said we want really peaceful relations with the United States. Putin has said we want to settle the Ukraine war. Hamas has even said they wanted to settle the war. Qatar, which is where we keep the U.S. Fifth Fleet, is home ported, and which has welcomed the senior Hamas leaders sitting poolside at the Four Seasons Hotel, the political leaders. Qatar has now said, well, we don't want those guys anymore. They're kicking them out. So everybody is all of a sudden, Donald Trump hasn't lifted one finger. And all of a sudden, everybody is saying, we want to make nice. We want a good relationship. So I think they all understand that the writing is on the wall, that the good old days of exploiting the United States and forever wars are coming to an end.
Okay. Well, it's encouraging to see a lot of these picks coming through. Happy to see that. I'm hoping, KT, that things calm down. Do you think things calm down in the first year of a incoming Trump administration on the global stage?
I think what will happen is he'll very quickly, because remember, I'm a New Yorker, and Donald Trump has been known in New York as one of the great negotiators, one of the great deal guys of all time. And he'll find a way to end that Ukraine war very quickly. He'll find a way to have better relations with our Europeans because he's going to convince them that it's in their best interest to increase their defense spending towards our common defense. And as Donald Trump adopts his new energy policy, drill baby drill, he calls it, the Russians and the Iranians will realize they cannot continue to fight. They cannot continue to exploit their own people. They've got to figure out a way of stopping these wars and having a relationship with the United States, mostly because they can't afford to do otherwise.
KT McFarland, as always, such a pleasure to have you on and good to talk to you today. Thank you so much.